Welcome to episode 45 of Fascinating, a Star Trek podcast. The Gamesters of Triskelion.
In this week's episode, Kirk, Chekhov and Uhura are abducted by a non-corporeal alien race and forced to participate in training for gladiatorial-style events. With only a small amount of data to work from, Spock leans on his logic despite the instincts of Scott and McCoy demanding an alternative course of action. With a fight to the death imminent, can the Enterprise arrive in time to save its captain and bridge officers? Or will a rescue prove impossible?
Unless it is your intention to declare a mutiny. Mr. Spock, who said anything about a mutiny, you stubborn, pointed-eared?
Good evening, Ian. How are you?
I'm not too bad, Gerry. How are you this week?
Mutinous.
Mutinous?
Possible.
Does that mean you're going to try and take control of this podcast? We should probably say before we start, put a wee trigger warning out. There's going to be discussions of depictions of rape in this episode.
Without a doubt.
So if that's something that is a concern for you, you may want to skip this one and join us again next week. That done, this is a very different style of episode from last week's.
I thoroughly enjoyed this. Last week you told me that the triples was a high point.
Yeah.
And you didn't like this episode as much. I, however, preferred this episode.
See, my concern was I felt this episode seemed derivative, but it could well be that chronologically it's not. And it's just that I've seen similar things that were made subsequently.
Quite possibly.
Did you like the pound shop among the merciless?
Yeah, I made that note myself.
Yeah. Okay, before we start, I should remind people to follow us on social media. We're at Trek Podcast on Instagram, on Facebook and on Twitter. And if you go to astartrekpodcast.com, we've got a post up every week about the episode we're discussing, so you can weigh in with your thoughts, your reminiscences and any trivia that we've missed that you enjoy. Right, shall we get going?
Let's crack on. An early captain's log, 3211.7.
Yeah, we get the stylised type of log where we join him halfway through recording and see him on the bridge. He's talking about the standard orbit they've established around Gamma 2, and he and some of his colleagues are going to go down and chart something.
Worth pointing out, they class it as an uninhabited planetoid.
Yeah, I think there's a Federation astrogation station and communication space there that they're going to just see it's working okay and then carry on.
On the bridge, Kirk tells Spock to mind the store as he, Uhura and Chekhov are going to beam down for a standard check of this planetoid.
Yeah, just check out the facility, make sure nothing's broken, and then be on their way.
And that's where we find them. They beam down aggressively and can't keep their feet on the patterned octagon.
Yeah, well, before that we get a brief scene in the transporter room where Scotty's about to beam them down, but we don't see the usual transporter effect, they just vanish from the pad.
Ah, yeah.
And as you say, they arrive falling over on this sort of octagon space.
And the score tells us that something is not quite right, quite ominous.
Chekhov asks what's happened, and Kirk suggests perhaps the transporter has malfunctioned.
Yeah, he doesn't think it's Gamma 2, and Uhura notes that it's a very strange landing pad.
Yeah, Kirk thinks that there's now a trinary star system that they're in, so that means obviously 3 suns, in case anyone wasn't sure. But unusual for them to beam to a completely different solar system.
Yeah. Up in the transporter room, Scotty is aware that something went wrong as he communicates to Spock, telling him that the crew vanished.
Yeah, Spock presumably considers this report inadequate, so he gets a bit sassy with Scotty.
Yeah, I think he asks him to make sure that the equipment is working properly, but he tells him, yeah, it is.
Yeah, why would I contact you if everything was just broken? Spock suggests they reverse the controls, but Scotty says he's done every possible check. The transporter wasn't involved in this.
And so he says he is going to scan for them on the planet.
Indeed.
So down there, we see Kirk trying to communicate with the Enterprise, but lines are dead. And as he does this, we see them begin to be surrounded.
Yes, there's one sort of big Kurt Russell looking Ben Hur type guy.
Quiff, I call him. Quiff.
A huge demented looking guy.
Caveman.
2 women, one with pink hair and one with green hair.
Yeah, you've got pink hair and you've got Oompa Loompa.
Pink hair, is that her name?
No, that's tinfoil, isn't it?
Pink hair was the Oompa Loompa.
Don't know, yeah, Oompa Loompa and the hot one.
Okay.
I'd imagine she's regarded as being hot. I mean, I don't actually think she is that hot, but
that's the design of the episode.
Yeah, I think a lot of Star Trek fans will be remembering her fondly. I'd imagine that.
I mean, it's not just her though. We've gone through a litany of attractive women that have guest starred in this show.
The fabulous Christine, I can't talk. If I was at a convention with her.
And Andrea, the android.
That's what I'm talking about. Is that not Christine?
The Christine is Majel Barrett Roddenberry.
Sorry, yeah, not her. No, I'm not into her. Andrea, I'm talking about.
Okay.
Got confused there. Sorry, Andrea. Will you ever forgive me?
So Kirk orders the rest of the guys to stun these visitors with their phasers, but they do not work.
No. So a hand-to-hand fight begins.
I like the fact that Kirk has to order them. It's like, oh, they were just going to stand there until Kirk says, hand-to-hand!
He's a captain.
It doesn't really matter because Chekhov is very quickly taken out by the giant guy and the two women subdue Uhura without any difficulty.
Yeah, I mean, they're eventually overpowered. Kirk does obviously have to be shown to put up a good fight. He's the last man standing.
He has to be outnumbered before he's taken down.
Of course. We then have the credits and then another captain's log, 3211.8. This is two very close together captain's log. I'm wondering if this is the most close together we find.
Oh, it's possible.
A few minutes apart, yeah.
I'm not sure that's the kind of thing that anyone's tracked.
Oh, listen, nerds. They track everything. They can tell you that every aspect of every episode.
In this log, Kirk is laying out the situation. It's the usual sort of post-credit recap.
Yeah, that's all it is. So back down on the planet, Ming, the merciless type chap, appears and commends them on their brave effort.
Yes, I think he's arrived to taunt Kirk and explain himself. He says he is the master thrall.
Yeah, so is a thrall a thing in this in the Star Trek universe now?
No, I don't think it's a thing. I think on this planet it's just a word for someone who is in thrall, a slave.
Right, okay. In any case, he has been sent to welcome them. I think Chekhov gets a bit cheeky here as well.
Chekhov always gets a bit cheeky.
Anyway, doesn't help because we're down in a dungeon next.
We are. It's obviously not made a great first impression.
We cut to them chained to the wall and hearing more about why they are there.
Now you are prepared for your training.
How do you know our names?
The providers were expecting you, Captain. They arranged your transportation.
These providers of yours, are they?
Correction, Captain. The providers are not ours. We are theirs.
What do they want from us?
You are to be trained, of course. What other use is there for thralls?
Thralls? Must be mistaken. We're officers of a United spaceship on Federation business.
There has been no mistake. Your old titles mean nothing here, Captain. You are thralls now. You are to be taken to the training enclosure. Come. Places have been prepared for you.
We're not going anywhere until we have some information. Who are you? What is this place? What do you think you're going to do with us?
I am Galt, the Master Thrall. This place is the planet Triskelion. You are to be trained and spend the rest of your lives here.
Kirk can't say he didn't get his questions answered. Seems quite clear.
No complaints. It's also interesting to consider the amount of planets or people or races who obviously haven't signed up to the Federation and their laws and government. We always come across planets where they ignore any...
Yeah, I mean the Federation's still exploring at this stage. They haven't reached all corners of the galaxy.
Sure.
Or even their quadrant. Galt was the name of one of the houses at my primary school.
Was it?
Yeah, prominent Scottish people. I never even found out who Galt was. I always wondered. Obviously, must be this guy.
Oh.
Robert Burns, William Wallace, Robert the Bruce, and Galt from the Gamesters of Triskelion. Up on the bridge of the Enterprise, Scotty reconfirms to Spock that this was nothing to do with the transporters, and stop asking me that.
Yeah, he does mention a power surge, but it had nothing to do with them. They don't know where their crewmates are, which frustrates McCoy, but Spock tells him they will continue scanning, as it is all they can do other than hope.
Yeah, McCoy goes for his usual hyper-emotional response to sort of place him in opposition to Spock.
Yeah, I think he says that hope is a human attribute.
Yes, and Spock shouldn't be dallying with it.
Yeah, However, Spock agrees and says that he's obviously been contaminated due to constant exposure.
Yes, exactly.
Back down in the dungeons, they are standing outside their individual cells, and for some reason they try to make a run for it.
They do, but they are stopped.
How are they stopped?
Galt uses his flashy eyes to activate their collars of obedience.
Yeah, which they now have around their necks, and this chokes them to the ground.
This idea was stolen by Marvel. I don't know actually if they'd used it in their comics first, who can say, but in the most recent Thor movie.
I also bet you that, here's the thing, right, I've often, as you know, Ian, I not make up things, I invent things which I unfortunately then find out that exist already. Now, is there such a thing as a nerdvert? I referenced them earlier on there. So, you know, the nerds who all creepy over the women of Star Trek and other things like that, and Princess Leia when she wears her bikini, right? I call them nerdverts. I bet you these nerdverts have got these chokey collars that you use in some sort of sex games.
I don't know.
I bet you can buy them. Dress up like that and put your collar on.
To shock people.
Yeah, well, maybe. Electricity play.
Yeah, well, whatever goes on in your head should probably stay there.
When they recover, Galt tells them that it was foolish, as escape is impossible, and they meekly return to their cells. It's like, oh yeah, okay, sorry.
Try again later. Back on the Enterprise bridge, Spock has ruled out the possibility of the 3 missing crewmen being anywhere in the solar system where they are.
Yeah, McCoy is getting extremely agitated, especially when Spock tells them that the odds of finding them alive are about 400 to 1.
Yeah, Spock asks McCoy at this point for suggestions, even if they are emotional ones, and McCoy notes that this is the first time he's ever asked him for help. I don't think that's true.
It's not, but it's a rare occasion, occurrence. Back down in the cells, the captives realise the problem the Enterprise will have in trying to find them, and Uhura then gets a visit from her personal drill thrall.
Yes, this is the Ben-Hur looking Kurt Russell guy. Yeah,
Quiff, who enters, and this is what you referred to at the top of the podcast. From the shadows on the wall and her screams, we can only assume that she is being raped or certainly sexually molested.
Yeah, so I assume that the writers didn't intend it to appear that she was being raped.
How else could you take this?
Well, attempted rape that she was able to fight off, I would imagine, is the interpretation.
No, you'd have, for her, this was such a big chap that would be implausible or unlikely that she's fighting him off. You'd have to have seen, you know, what you'd have to do in this situation is you get the female giving a knee to the groin, that type of thing, and him going, oh, cross-eyed. That's how you would show that she overcomes. If you don't see that, the likelihood is that this man is far more powerful and he has his way.
Yeah, but if he's not anticipating any kind of resistance at all, maybe he's just taken aback by the fact that she's not willing and says he'll come back later. But then...
No, you see him walking out, zipping up his fly.
Well, that's not quite what he was doing.
He's touching his belt. He's definitely doing something. I'm sorry.
And there is a fade out and fade back in to show that time has passed.
Yes.
So it is. I think that's a fair interpretation. I don't know that would be an intended interpretation.
I don't see what other interpretation you could what other spin you could put on that.
Most sources that I went to were quite keen to emphasise the fact that her clothes remain undamaged. Normally you would have some sort of rip in her uniform or something to show she'd been attacked, or something more visual than just this shadow scene. But Kirk's distress gives the impression that something serious is going on. Yeah, it was quite it's certainly a scene that the top sort of 5 scenes that have stood out for me in the run so far. And the more shocking thing is it never gets mentioned. No. Whether the guy was successful or not, it's a traumatic experience for Uhura either way. Yeah, I mean, best case scenario, she was able to fight him off, but what is the implication here? That he was trying to anyway? Yeah. And it just never gets acknowledged at any point by any of the other characters. Huh. And she's expected just to carry on. Yeah. It's pretty poor handling, especially, I don't want to be unfair, but it's a female writer of the episode. You'd think they'd be more in tune with, but then obviously you don't know what Gene Roddenberry's edited or what the studio has insisted on, etc. But it's not very sensitively handled, I would suggest. Yeah, I mean that is the thing. It's the fact that there was a fade in and fade out and the camera panned away. We've seen Uhura been assaulted before, been slapped. Yeah.
and we've seen, and we'll see in this episode as well, we've seen other women being attacked. McCoy, for one, hitting pregnant. So they've got no issues with showing a woman being physically assaulted.
No.
So
what is it they couldn't show?
Why are they cutting away? Very, I've got to say, interesting but disturbing.
Yes, certainly on a family show.
Mm-hmm.
Shanna, at this point, is revealed to be the name of the green-haired woman. Or at least...
Okay, let's, before we get to that, so we just need to wrap this up. As you mentioned, I think Kirk comes to the same conclusion as we have, because he reaches out through the bars and screams, demanding to know what's happening to her. And we cut back to Lars leaving as he
adjusts his clothing.
His trousers, his belt.
Okay.
And I think informs Kirk that she is not allowed to refuse selection. I mean, that
statement is fairly ambiguous. I mean, that could be either she has refused or he made the point to her that she wasn't allowed to refuse.
Anyway, we'll move on. One of the women, Shanna, then enters... Is it Shanna? How do you pronounce it? Shanna. Then enters Kirk's cell. Now, he's probably at this point thinking, oh, well, I'm not refusing, I'm not putting up a fight here.
But she's not been selected for him. She's just bringing him some food and she's going to train him.
Yeah, he's obviously disappointed to discover that it's just nourishment that she's offering. I also just noted at this point, she has hair like Eileen Wuornos.
Who's that?
The famous American serial killer and monster played by Charlize Theron. Yeah. She, in the movie, and I think in real life, she used to wash and dry her hair at truck stops, so she would use a hand dryer. Really? Her hair was always sort of blown back at the sides. That's what her hair reminded me of. Okay. Anyway, there you go.
Yeah. We go up to the bridge here. I've noted at this point, and it continues through almost the entire episode, and it seems to me quite poor. It's like a metronome where bridge, planet, bridge, planet, bridge, planet. The scenes are all similar length. It's very sort of writing by numbers. It's like we'll have to have a scene here, then a scene there, then a scene here, then a scene there.
We've mentioned this before as well. I think a lot of the time they just have to split up.
Yeah, well, we've seen it before where it's been a long scene broken up, but this is more like we need to have these. We've got an A plot and a B plot. We're going to give equal time or whatever percentage of time, and it's here and back and here and back and here. And I didn't like it. Bothered me when I was watching the episode.
Sure, I think that's a fair point.
We've got Spock recording a log now.
3259.2.
He just says that they're missing and the computer doesn't know what's going on. There's a substitute Uhura on the bridge, Lieutenant Haynes.
Yes, her stand-in calls him over to look at an odd reading coming from a cloud which has an ionization trail.
Spock recognises this is, like I say, the trail, and asks the computer what could account for this.
Yeah, they have no explanation, so Spock decides to follow it, much to the chagrin of McCoy, who doesn't like the idea.
Yeah, he doesn't want to leave the solar system because he thinks that their only chance of saving the others is staying where they are. Yeah,
he thinks it's a wild goose chase, but Spock tells him that they're following their friends, not a wild aquatic fowl. I like that.
Yes. This is no basis for a system of government.
What's your thoughts on Chekhov's thrall in this scene?
I think it is a bit... it's an unfair...
I mean, it's you wouldn't write it like this these days.
You certainly wouldn't. It's like something out of a 70s sitcom.
Yeah.
Look how unattractive she is. And oh, look, it's worse. She's got a deep voice.
Sorry, but I do refer to her as Oompa Loompa, and I think that's fair enough because of the colour and the way she's been designed.
Yeah, but I just think that it's the way they say these attributes are unattractive.
Yeah,
objectively unattractive. Deep voice is unattractive, and her face is unattractive.
No, I think when you put them together, that can be unattractive.
Chekhov's already unhappy before she speaks.
For some reason, we get a seductive score as he gets a visit from this person.
I've noted that he's a very shallow man.
He is a very shallow man, but he's not there for a relationship. He's understandably Kirk disappointed, although she does tell him she is only a nourishment provider and likes his name. I think it's Chico.
Chekov.
Yeah. Chekov, yeah.
Chekov time.
Yes, she sidles up to him and introduces herself as Tamun.
Yes, she's not been selected for him, but she may be. She's quite excited about this idea if she trains him well.
Yeah, she gives him a little shake and calls him a fine specimen, which causes him to stand up and walk away. He's very fussy, Chekhov.
Yeah, he wasn't that fussy up in on the planet in Mud when he was into androids chasing after him.
No, but in fairness, they were more attractive.
Right, okay.
This, you might have this in your trivia, but apparently this actress used to get confused all the time with B. Arthur from the Golden Girls and Maud.
B. Arthur had to deny having ever been in Star Trek. Yeah, I saw that trivia.
Yeah, well.
Meanwhile, in Kirk's cell, he's enjoying his food. Seems quite happy. He's not that fussed about what happens to Uhura. And Shanna is still with him.
Yeah, he's stuffing his face with M&Ms.
Something like that. Probably nourishment tablets.
Which he tells her are very good, before asking her about the collar.
What do you call this collar?
It is the sign of our provider. By the color of the lights, it can be known who holds us. When you are vended, you will also have a color.
Vended? You mean bought, sold?
When you are developed, the provider who offers the most quatlus puts his color on us.
Our race has another name for it. Slavery. This collar of obedience. Is Galt the only one who can operate it?
It is only to warn and punish.
How does he work it?
It is not permitted to talk of that.
Will you provide all my nourishment?
Of course. I am your drill thrall. I will train you well.
Yes, I'm sure you will. I must say, I've never seen a top sergeant who looked like you.
What does that mean?
Means you're a very beautiful woman.
What is beautiful?
You mean nobody's ever told you that before? Well, beautiful is, beautiful. That's beautiful.
Yeah, he then shows her face. It's like a spoon face job.
Yeah, the back of the cutlery.
Yeah, it's not it's not that complimentary.
Well,
I mean, anyone looking at themselves in those sort of the reflections aren't going to look. His face gets mangled.
Also, the idea that he's never seen a trainer who looked pretty before.
He's not seen any of these trainers at all. A drill, a drill sergeant.
So Starfleet only has either ugly women or men as trainers.
According to Kirk, yeah. And then that's not the point. He shouldn't be. This isn't. He's trapped down here. He's been told he's been trapped here for.
Well, we know that his way is to kind of whale his way in with these women and then use it to his advantage. He did it in Cat's Paw.
Yeah.
Anyway, he goes on to ask her about her childhood and finds out that her mother was also a slave who died in one of their fights.
Yeah, in a freestyle match. He then asks about Lars and Tamoon, but they are interrupted by an alarm and a flashing red light that signals time for exercise.
And we go back to the bridge where McCoy continues to berate Spock, now with backup from Scotty.
Yeah, Spock states that the nearest previous system, or star system, on the path that they're on was 11 light years away.
Well, it is. It's ahead of them, yeah. So that's quite a long way.
Yeah. McCoy is astounded that he could think that they've travelled such a long distance.
I do like the use of the phrase, you're out of your Vulcan mind.
Is that what it says? Yeah.
Spock's not assuming anything, but he's going to continue on the course they're on for now.
Yeah, the only logical course that he can take.
You can sense there's a growing disquiet certainly between McCoy and Scotty.
Yeah. Back down at the Octagon.
Yep, they're learning how to use these hook
Sorry, I'm
sticks.
saying Octagon. I'm assuming it is. I've not.
Yeah, I didn't count the sides. It's got a number of sides.
That'll do.
Yeah, these hook sticks that we saw Shanna with at the start, they're learning how to use them.
Yeah, they're stopped in this sparring by Galt, who has another thrall who also needs punishing and will be used as target practice.
Yeah, Uhura refuses to do this, and Kirk says none of them will participate, so they all get collar shocked.
Yeah, they're going to have to learn, aren't they?
Galt's got a bit grumpy now, and he selects Uhura as the replacement victim.
Yes, this bit, I think, unless I watched this wrongly, so the original guy they brought in was tied up. He was untied and told to hit Uhura.
Well, they're going to tie Uhura up and make her the target for everybody, I think.
Right. But this guy just disappears. We don't see him again.
Yeah, he's away.
But the gallant Kirk says he is responsible for his crew and demands to see the providers. This is denied by Galt, but he tells them that since he assumed responsibility, he will have to take Uhura's place. Now, I thought that's what he was going to do in the first place. It was like Uhura was about to be tortured.
Yeah.
And he goes, no, I assume responsibility. And I thought, here we go. He'll say, I'll take her place. No. I'm responsible. I want to speak to someone else.
I want to speak to the manager.
Yes.
But yes, we're not getting that. And Galt says it's going to be a shame to lose you, Kirk, but it'll make a good example for the others. And we get a very brief captain's log.
But he also says it's not as bad as a collar.
Well, Galt, yes, because you'll die quickly and you won't feel the pain.
I'd rather have a collar.
Yeah, probably.
Collar seems okay. It's choking a little bit for 10 seconds, then you're okay.
Yeah. Supplemental captain's log, unknown stardate. Strange captivity continues on Triskelion. No one knows where it is or who controls it, but it's very dangerous.
I missed that.
I didn't really add anything. I guess that's after the adverts again.
Alright.
We used to have that a lot back in season 1. In the combat area, Kirk is getting beaten up a little bit, but does get a few shots in on the big guy.
Is this the big fella called Glug?
Klug.
He's got a whip.
Yeah.
And it definitely looks worse than the collar.
I would say.
He is being lashed.
Yeah, but once Kirk gets a few hits in on him, they call a break.
A 15 trisecond interval, during which Shana gives...
Yeah, she dopes Kirk up with some kind of steroids.
Gives him a ped.
And advises him to attack Klug from his left because that eye is weaker than the other one.
They resume, and after taking more lashes, Kirk manages to get his hands in front of him and is then able to choke out his opponent.
Yes, and we hear some disembodied voices.
Yeah, Provider 1 tells them to hold as he gets into an auction with the other providers for Kirk until he eventually wins him for 2,000 Squatloos or Quatloos, that's it.
Kirk refuses to acknowledge being owned, and the providers bet with one another on whether the 3 Enterprise crewmen can be trained.
They are then marked on the collar by Galt to show that they are part of a herd, and through his body the provider warns them that as they are now thralls, any further nonsense will be punished by death.
That doesn't make any sense.
Why not?
Why would they be more likely to be killed now that they are an asset to somebody, rather than before when nobody had anything to lose?
Yeah.
Anyway, back on the bridge, Scotty is in a huff.
Yeah, he's moaning to Spock that it seems impossible that their missing colleagues could have come so far, and thinks that they should have searched where they were lost.
Yeah, I mean, scientifically, Scotty's probably quite right, but it's not really explained very well. He's just made to look like a moaning teenager.
Yeah, Spock reminds him that they did this, and McCoy is resigned to the notion that if they're not there, then it is likely that they're dead.
Yeah, and Spock says that in that case, there's nothing to lose investigating this lead.
We find ourselves at some ruins back down on the planet where...
They look a lot like the ruins from episode 1.
Do they? Yeah.
They are the ruins from episode 1.
Yeah, that'll be mine then. A now shirtless Kirk, he's...
Where'd that happen?
Yeah, I better just take this off. He's out of breath and asks to stop running when he and Shana arrive at some of these old ruins, and he uses the opportunity to ask about the providers and why they enjoy watching others being hurt.
Yeah, she doesn't really want to talk about the providers, so he ponders whether this set of ruins could have once been a city for the providers, and she doesn't want to talk about that either.
Yeah, so he changes the topic for a moment and claims that the country they're in looks like his home planet as he creeps up behind her. He's very inappropriate, is Kirk.
But what is appropriate in these circumstances?
Not rubbing up against a strange person.
Okay.
She cannot grasp the concept of another planet and people living there. So Kirk goes on to talk about astronomy and love.
Don't you ever look at the night sky? The lights up there.
I have looked at them.
Well, those are stars. And around them are planets. And there are people that live on them, just like us.
How can one live on a flicker of light?
From Earth, Triskelion's 3 suns are just a flicker of light. Actually, this is the darkest planet I've ever seen.
Dark? But all is lighted. Here, the chambers.
The thralls have no freedom, Shana. You don't think or do anything but what the providers tell you.
What else would one do?
Love, for one thing.
What is love?
Love is the most important thing on earth, especially to a man and a woman.
We too have mates. When it is time to increase the herd, my provider will select one for me.
On earth, we select our own mate, someone we care for. On earth, men and women live together, help each other, make each other happy.
I do not think your words are allowed.
He paints a very utopian picture of love and relationships on Earth, doesn't he?
He paints a very heterosexual picture of love and relationships.
And very westernised as well.
Very much so. So, yes, I would challenge his position.
Yeah.
It's crap.
That is nonsense.
Kirk asks again about the providers.
No, she goes to walk away, so he stops her and tells her to tell him about these providers, yeah.
Yes, and she says they are not like us before being collar shocked, leading him to overreact.
Yeah, he cries out for them to stop and protest that it was his fault, not hers, and he should be punished, which intrigues the providers as we hear the voice remark on his compassion and admit he interests them, but must learn obedience to become an excellent thrall.
Kirk then comforts Shanna before kissing her against her will, until she likes it.
Yeah, still James Bond again, isn't it?
Yeah. She asks if this is another form of helping, and he's like, yep, sure, whatever, yeah.
Yeah, he passes this off as a custom of his people.
I have a further way to help you.
Yeah, we all do this. I mean, it's just polite. Everyone does it. Yes, if you just remove your clothing, well, I'll show you how to be really polite.
Yes. She asks if this is all that people on Earth do, and Galt pops out of nowhere to advise that they're not being punished because you've amused the providers, but get back to your room.
Yeah, before then, we should mention the fact that he does take advantage of an extremely vulnerable woman here.
Naive, yep, and probably unable to consent.
Well, she's almost been choked out, doesn't know what's going on, yeah. And he thinks, do you know what, I'll kiss her. She's definitely thinking rationally. It's not like, she's totally vulnerable, scared, helpless, worried. I'll use my perceived position of strength to...
Absolutely, but then he's being held captive, so is he entitled to do whatever it takes to escape?
No, I'm sorry, no, you're not. Well, no. Maybe. No.
Okay, so then Galt does show up and, as I said, sends him back to his room without punishment.
Yes. And so he and Shanna leave arm in arm.
They do.
Up in the bridge.
Spock wants more speed.
I'm sure he does, the deviant.
He has to work 40 hours a day. He needs whatever he can get. Scotty continues to question his orders, and McCoy backs Scotty up, calling this trip a wild hunch. Now,
this stood out for me. Would they have ever considered acting like this towards Kirk if they thought it was a wrong decision?
Not on the bridge. They would have called him into the briefing room or something to raise an issue.
It's a complete lack of respect for Spock, I feel.
But on the other hand, they did do this with Kirk 2 weeks ago. When he was having them chase after this cloud in Obsession, maybe 3 weeks ago. 3 weeks ago. So they did have a meeting and said, we might have to take you out of command because you're being a bit weird.
Yeah, but Spock's not being weird here.
No, but maybe Spock could have dealt with this better by having a senior crew meeting and explaining, here's what I'm doing, here's why I'm doing it.
Potentially,
rather than just saying, just accept what I'm saying and get in line.
Yeah, I can see what you're saying. However, I do feel there is a lack of respect here that they're just very quickly...
Well, we've seen it before. Every time Spock takes command, they try to undermine him because they think he's not qualified to lead when he doesn't feel emotions.
Sure. In any case, Spock rightly puts his foot down and reminds them who is in charge and asks if they intend a mutiny. We heard that at the opening clip.
Yeah, and this flips it because the two of them back down and are very sheepish very suddenly.
Yeah, he calls him stubborn and mentions his pointy ears, but accepts his decision if they can try again should they come up empty.
Yep, Spock's happy to agree to that, and Scotty offers him as much engine power as he wants and perhaps a little bit more.
Yeah, warp 7, or a wee bit more. Back down in Kirk's cell.
Shanna's back with more food and says that Kirk has made her feel bad, so she doesn't want to work with him anymore. So Kirk responds in the only way a gentleman should.
How?
He kisses her and then knocks her out with a punch to the face.
Yeah, it's troubling. This is incredible, this one. So we've already had Uhura being raped. I mean, this episode Has got 2 scenes of
sexual violence.
Yeah, but played off so casually.
Yeah, and it's the way it's made out to be reasonable behaviour by Kirk. He's got no concern. This is an abusive relationship he's created here.
Sure, and he's telling her about, back on Earth, men and women love each other and take care of each other. But,
yeah, all he wants to do is escape. He's not getting any
well,
interest.
not only that, I think he enjoys, the only way I can escape is if I have sex with her.
Yeah.
You know, that's the only way.
I was forced once more.
Yes, he enjoys what he's doing.
You imagine the admirals at Starfleet are like, oh, there's a report for Kirk.
Is this the only? I assure you, I
There
tried
was
everything
no other
else.
option.
So yeah, he gets a bit rapey, and then he knocks her out with a little jab to the jaw.
Yep.
It's incredible.
Steals her keys and leaves. He opens Chekhov's cell, where Chekhov is already bound and gagged.
Yeah, he didn't know this part was happening. He just get fed up with her, man. You're he's like, Kirk opens the cell and goes, Chekhov, how did you know? He's like,
Know
what do
what?
you mean? No what?
Meanwhile, Uhura's thrall Lars is away to report her because she complained about the food, so she's not being guarded right now.
Yeah.
They're able to get her out. And Kirk hypothesizes wrongly, because he's seen something different happen already, that Galt is the only one in control of the collars, and using a phaser they could short them out. He just saw Shanna being shocked by the providers.
Yeah.
Anyway, they head outside to the combat area.
And they're faced with Galt, who gives them the usual punishment, and we hear a provider tell them that it is only a reminder, as they're most stimulating. They're not really trying to put them off, are they?
No, they quite enjoy this.
Yeah. Up in the bridge.
The Enterprise has reached Triskelion, and McCoy assumes they will send down a landing force.
But Spock isn't going to send down a landing party, as he thinks it will endanger the others if they are indeed down there. Instead, he is going to go down himself, and only if he can't communicate will a larger party be required.
Yeah, so McCoy goes back to his rage, accuses Spock of this wild goose chase, and then volunteers to join him on the trip to the planet.
Which Spock accepts, and they put Scotty in charge. But before they get off the bridge...
Yes, the lights change.
Yeah, they're interrupted by a provider who speaks and also allows Kirk to communicate with his first officer.
No, Mr. Spock, you will not leave the ship. None of your control systems will operate.
What the devil's going on?
Spock? Welcome to Triskelion, gentlemen. By now, it must be obvious to you that you have been expected.
What the voice said was true, sir. Nothing is functioning.
Commendations, gentlemen. Your ingenuity in discovering the whereabouts of your companions is noteworthy.
What you're hearing, gentlemen, is a provider.
We are known to the Thralls as providers because we provide for all their needs. The term is easier for their limited mental abilities to comprehend.
Providing for all their needs means using thralls, people stolen from other parts of the galaxy, to fight each other. And the providers gamble on the winner.
Fascinating.
But these providers haven't the courage to show themselves.
Your species has great curiosity. We knew that. You are interesting in many ways.
But you are afraid.
You present no danger while you wear the collar, and you wear it as long as you live.
Then show yourselves.
There is no objection.
Kirk is now taken down to a cavern a kilometre below the surface, where he meets the providers, who happen to be wee brains in a jar. I assume the red one is the one that owns Kirk, because his collar's gone red.
Would make sense, yeah.
Kirk assumes that they've evolved to this state, or evolved as this, but they explain that they were previously humanoids and evolved from that position by devoting themselves to intellectual pursuits like crosswords and Sudoku.
And so he remarks that enslaving people isn't a sign of superiority, but they claim that the games are their only challenge and purpose.
Yeah, they've finished all possible crosswords, so now gambling on sports is all that keeps them going as a species.
He then tries to use reverse psychology by claiming that all creatures are capable of evolving, and therefore perhaps they're not as superior as they think. But They seem to ignore this and lament that, although most interesting, he and the others must be destroyed.
Yes, but Kirk manages to trick them almost into gambling this punishment.
How does he do that?
He offers to let them do what they're going to do anyway if they can win a fight against him with their champions.
Yeah,
or against them. I think it's going to be the Enterprise.
Well, yeah, what he says is that with weapons of their choice, his people can beat an equal number of thralls. The providers are up for this and start wagering on this, but Kirk goads them into a bigger gamble.
Yes, he puts his car keys on the table.
He does.
He offers them submission on the part of the entire crew of the Enterprise if he is beaten or if they are beaten.
However, if they win, they leave and all the thralls are to be released. Not only that, but they would train these thralls to be a self-sustaining people and culture.
That seems like a fair bet. But the providers have a condition if they're to accept this.
Yeah, it's going to be 3 versus 1.
And the one is Kirk. And he says it's not fair, but he's reminded that the alternative is to just kill him anyway.
Yeah, we don't have to have this bet.
Yeah. So he agrees.
At the Octagon, as he prepares to fight, he is told that the crew on the Enterprise are able to watch and the rules are explained about where he can stand and that the opponents must be killed or else I think they're replaced.
Yes, if he only wins them, they can be replaced by other thralls. This was a bit like in Arena, where Kirk's fight with the Gorn was viewable from the Enterprise.
It was indeed, yeah. Up on the bridge, the crew watch on in horror as McCoy asks, "What in heaven is going on?" How does Scotty respond?
It's nothing to do with heaven. Kirk is given rules about who's allowed to stand on what parts of the arena, but these are immediately broken by everybody.
They are, yeah, you can see their feet outside all the time. The fight starts and he faces the caveman, Quiff, and some other guy who looks like one of the ones from Journey to Babel.
It was an Andorian, yes.
Yes.
So Kirk takes out one of the thralls and then injures another, so that one is replaced by a now seriously angry Shanna.
Yes, she accuses him of lying.
Which he did.
And also battery. And attempted rape.
Probably. She, though, keeps hesitating when she gets the opportunity to finish him off.
Both of them do.
Okay.
But he gets to her again with a knife to the throat. And she ends it.
I didn't know she was allowed to do that.
Neither did I. That's a note I've taken. You can't just do this.
It's meant to be a fight to the death. He's meant to kill 3 of them.
The Predators should say, nope, continue.
Yeah.
Or else you're all dying, yeah.
But anyway, they agree to abide by the terms of the bet. And then we get a stupid conversation between Kirk and Shanna about lights in the sky and why he can't take her with him because he's got a wife back home.
Yeah. I mean, I'm going to divorce her, I promise, but
right now it would just be too awkward.
Yeah, so we'll keep it a secret, yeah. I'll come and visit.
I'll come back when you've been trained in self-sustenance, and if you've developed enough over the years, I'll take you with me then.
Yeah. That's what he says, yeah. I'm sure he will.
He kisses her one more time and then gets beamed up. And then we get a ridiculous final line by Shanna.
Yeah, she's in tears as she says goodbye and vowing to learn and watch the lights in the sky.
Yeah, great.
Mm-hmm. She'll forget about him anyway.
Yeah.
You know, she's like someone who works in a holiday town.
Yes, it was a great week, but next lot in.
Next lot of tourists. I'll have a romance.
Yeah, because the providers will want to do something else. Even if they train these guys up, they'll create new thralls to be underneath them.
For sure, yeah.
Yeah, we've covered most of my thoughts on this. So the back and forth I didn't like. Kirk's behaviour is very poor. Scotty and McCoy's behaviour is quite poor in this episode.
Lars's behaviour was atrocious.
Awful. And the total non-discussion or addressing of the issues that were raised is also quite poor.
I would be interested on social media to hear any of the listeners' thoughts on the Uhura incident.
Yeah, absolutely. What was your feeling? Do you still like this episode overall?
Yes, I did. I mean,
yeah, I suppose it raises issues for discussion. Doesn't mean it's a bad episode.
Yeah.
Yeah. No, I don't think it's as bad as when I first watched it.
Like I said, I prefer it to the Tribbles episode.
Fair enough. Some trivia?
Sure.
First aired on the 5th of January 1968, so first episode of 1968, and was directed by Gene Nelson. So you might know this name. This was his only episode of Star Trek that he directed, but as an actor, he appeared in shows like Rawhide and Murder, She Wrote. And as a director, he worked on The Andy Griffith Show, I Dream of Jeannie, and Mod Squad, amongst other things. Originally a dancer, he fought in World War II and appeared in musicals including Tea for Two, for which he won the Most Promising Newcomer Golden Globe, and Oklahoma.
Very good. I don't recognise the name, but no doubt I'll recognise the face.
Could do. He died of cancer in 1996 when he was 76. Margaret Armin was the writer. This was the first of 3 original series episodes, and she would also pen 2 animated series episodes. She also wrote for a number of other shows, including The Bionic Woman, The $6 Million Man, and Wonder Woman. She died in 2003 at the age of 82.
Did you watch those shows? I watched all 3 of those.
I think I've seen bits and pieces, yeah. Angelique Petitjohn played Shanna. This was her only Star Trek appearance, and she also appeared in shows like Batman, The Girl from U.N.C.L.E. and Get Smart, as well as opposite Elvis in the movie Clambake. After her career stalled, and she got involved in some other types of film, she found popularity headlining science fiction conventions.
I'm sure. Nerdverse.
Before her untimely death from cancer in 1992 when she was just 48.
Not good.
Joseph Ruskin was Galt. This was his only original series appearance, but he would go on to appear in 3 episodes of Deep Space Nine, as well as an episode of Voyager, an episode of Enterprise, and the Next Generation movie Insurrection, making him the only actor to appear on screen in all 4 of those series and with all 5 crews.
There you go.
He also appeared in series like Mod Squad, Mission Impossible, and ER before his death in 2013 at the age of 89. Steve Sandor was Lars, the Kurt Russell-looking rapist. This was his only Star Trek role, but he showed up in a number of your other favourite series, including TJ Hooker, The A-Team, and Knight Rider.
There you go.
Before taking up acting, he was in the US Air Force, and he retired from acting in the late 90s. He died in 2017 when he was 79.
Do we have a Columbo connection this week?
Wait.
Okay.
I've still got about 5 more people to go through.
Really? 5?
Jane Ross was Tamoon. This was her only Star Trek role in a short acting career. She had an uncredited role in The Planet of the Apes and sang on the Frank Sinatra Show as part of a close harmony group called the Tritones, where she sang alongside Belinda Burrell and Nancy Sinatra.
Okay.
She died in 85 at the age of 53.
Does she not also star in the Golden Girls?
No, that was a different person altogether.
Okay.
Victoria George played Lieutenant Haynes, the substitute Uhura. She too had a short acting career with this her only Star Trek role. She showed up on Mod Squad and The Bold and the Beautiful and has also worked as a publicist. Mickey Morton played Klug. This was his only Star Trek appearance, but he also showed up on the Star Wars Holiday Special in 1978, as well as shows like Laverne and Shirley, BJ and the Bear, and Hill Street Blues. He died in 1993 when he was 66. Dick Crockett was the random Andorian thrall who showed up near the end.
It's a good name.
He had an uncredited role last week as one of the Klingons fighting in the bar, and this was the last of his 2 Star Trek appearances. He also appeared in shows like Get Smart, Macmillan and Wife, and the 1971 Bond movie Diamonds Are Forever.
Right, what about the Columbo connection?
In terms of a Columbo connection, it says here, Walker Edmonston, you'll remember, was the voice of Baylock in the Corbomite manoeuvre, and when we did in that episode, he'd appeared in 2 Columbos. He was also the voice of the second provider in this one, so we've covered him already, but he is our Columbo connection for this episode.
That's fine.
This was the last of 5 uncredited original series voice roles that he performed. In terms of trivia, Galt actually was modelled on Ming the Merciless. During filming of this episode, it was announced that the show would not be returning for a 3rd season, and an unprecedented fan writing campaign eventually saw that decision reversed.
So halfway through the 2nd season, they cancelled?
Yeah.
Okay.
One of the other providers was voiced by Bob Johnson, who you might recall as the tape recording voice on Mission Impossible series when they got their missions.
Really?
Yeah.
Oh, that's good.
Chekhov's role in this episode was originally written for Sulu, but George Takei was away filming The Green Berets when they recorded this.
With John Wayne?
I believe so. In terms of international titles, in German this was Meister der Sklaven, Master of the Thralls.
Now, have you got that right?
I hope so. I got in trouble not that long ago for my German.
Quite right.
In Italy it was La Posta in Gioco, which means the stakes of the game. While in Japan they went with Uchushire Kubiwajime, which translates as the Space Directive, Throttling Collars.
Never mind the German pronunciations. I'm desperate to hear what a Japanese person thinks.
They won't recognise what I'm saying as Japanese, I don't imagine.
Probably not.
No.
It'd be good for a laugh.
Yeah, they go through each episode, they could cut it out and just analyse each one, what it should
What you actually said.
Yeah, what's that translated?
My mother is a
snowblower. Next time, 17th episode of Season 2, a piece of the action, a period piece which you might enjoy.
I think.
I hope so. So until next week.
Cheerio.
Bye bye.